Hi, my name is Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and this video tutorial is for the Gneiss scarf. I bet you're wondering what Gneiss is besides a really nice, lovely scarf, and let me tell you. Gneiss is a medium to coarse-grained metamorphic rock characterized by alternating light and dark bands. Basically, Gneiss is the schist. Stephanie told me to say that. Seriously though, I want to tell you all about Gneiss. It is a side-to-side scarf that is worked from one tip, increases towards the center, and works back down to the other tip. The scarf has a lace band that goes along the straight edge of Gneiss, and you can work that lace with beads or without beads. That is completely your choice. There are two different sizes for Gneiss scarf, and it is really easy to make it bigger or make it smaller depending upon how much yarn you have. I'm really excited about the yarn that I used for Gneiss. I knit my Gneiss in a Garthenor Organic #1, which is a woolen spun single ply yarn. This yarn is from the UK, and one of the things that makes Garthenor really unique is they're a single breed, like farm and mill, so they know for every skein of yarn, they know which flock of sheep that yarn came from, which is really unique for a yarn maker to have that information. And I'm really excited to be sharing this yarn with Lola's Choice members. So you can be knitting Gneiss with a kit that you got from Lola's Choice, or you can be going and looking for your own yarn and knitting Gneiss on your own. The following tips and tricks I'm going to go through in this video do assume that you've either downloaded the pattern as part of your Lola's Choice kit, or that you have purchased the pattern. You won't be able to follow this video and make the scarf without it. So without further ado, let's talk about the materials that you're going to need to make your Gneiss scarf. Okay, there's not a lot that you need for knitting Gneiss. The first thing that you'll need is some lace weight yarn. Under the camera here, you can see that Garthenor #1 that I was just telling you about. One skein of this yarn has about 383 yards or 350 meters. The pattern actually only uses about what does it say? Let's look here. 215-ish for the large and 115-ish yards for the small. So you have plenty of yarn on your skein. The other thing that you'll need if you're working with beads are either some 4mm square Miyuki beads or size 6 seed beads. In the kit, I included 4mm square beads, and I found these beads that are really beautiful because they're very stone-like. You can see that I was really going with my rock theme on this kit, and they really pop against the gray. The color that I'm working with, continuing with my rock theme, is called Boulder. The other thing that you got if you were in Lola's Choice and got the kit is you got a tiny little pet rock stitch marker from Whimsy and Sassy. I'm really excited to see what everybody names their pet rocks. I know some of you are going to name them Lola, and some of you might just name them Nice Rock. The jokes are going to be endless this video, so just get yourself comfortable with them now and let me go for the rest of the video. You will also need a second stitch marker, and then you'll also need something for placing the beads, either a crochet hook. Your kit includes a piece of super floss in it that you can also use for placing the beads, or if you have a beetle needle, that will work as well. The only other thing that you will need is needles, and I do suggest suggest for this pattern to choose needles that have a nice sharp tip on them. I knit my Gneiss with a US size 5 needle. Those can be straights or circs, whatever you feel like. Gneiss is worked flat, and you might even find that you want to start working it on double points when you have less stitches on your needles, and then move up to a longer circ as you have more stitches on your needles. So that's completely up to you, but those are the materials that you are going to need. So now that you have gathered all of that, let's get into sizing for Gneiss and gauge so you know what to do when it comes to that. Okay, let's talk about gauge and the nicest size for your scarf. So if you're working with the Garthenor Organic #1 like I did, you do need to knit a gauge swatch, but you might not need to block it. If you're working with another yarn, you might want to go ahead and block it, but if you have plenty of yarn, just find a gauge that you really like that yarn at. The scarf does not use a lot of yarn. So if you're working with the Garthenor Organic #1, I got about 20 stitches by 36 rows over 4 inches in garter stitch flat unblocked. So if you go ahead and knit a 3 or 4 inch swatch that's got maybe 22 or 24 stitches on it, and you get around 20 stitches and 36 rows unblocked, then go for it, rip that out and start knitting your swatch. If you're unsure and you want to block that, you'll want to block hard, because that is how you are going to block your final Gneiss. And when you go to block it hard and your fabric is completely dry, it will hold that block. This is not a superwash yarn, so it is not going to bounce back into itself. It's going to hold the block that you give it, and you'll end up at about 18 stitches by 24 rows over 4 inches blocked. Definitely let me know if you have any questions about gauge. So as you get into knitting your Gneiss, the directions are the same for the smaller size and the larger size. The difference is how many times you work the increase section and decrease section. So you'll start the same for both the small and the large. The small comes in at around 36 inches long and 8 inches deep, and the larger size is about 52 inches and 11 inches deep. I am wearing, just to give you an example, I'm wearing the larger size. I can wrap it around my neck once and then knot it. If you make the smaller size, you're probably not gonna wrap it around your neck. You're just gonna knot it or leave it hanging. And then in those photos of me wearing it around my head, the longer size kind of gave me a scarf length after it was wrapped on my head. And if you make the smaller size, it's just gonna tie with tiny little tails at the back if you think you're gonna wear it like that, more like a bandana size than like a headscarf size. So that gives you an idea of which size you wanna make. Certainly if you wanna make a Gneiss that is much, much longer, what you'll do is just continue that increase section. And a good thing to do that will be helpful if you know you want to make your Gneiss as big as the yarn that you have, if you weigh your skein of yarn before you start knitting, and then you continue to weigh, once you get to just a few grams around the halfway point of your ball of yarn, you'll start to want to decrease and use the decrease sections to go back in the other direction. So if you want to, you can get the most out of your yarn. Just remember that you're going to need more beads if you go ahead and do that. So if you have your kit from Lola's Choice, I always give more beads than are called for in the pattern, but you would almost want to like count your beads and make sure you only use half of them, and know that you'll use the second half of those beads for the second half of your scarf. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm always happy to help clarify that. So now that you know about gauge and you know about size, let's jump right in with the cast on, and let me show you how to read the chart and work those first few rows. All right, we are ready to jump right in. And I want to talk about the charts and written instructions with you. I personally am a chart reader and I love working lace from chart. I know many of you prefer to work from written instructions, so I include both in the patterns, but I want to look at these charts in particular because they might be a little bit different than something you've seen before, and you might find that you really love working with them. So if we look down at the Gneiss start, which is the first 26 rows of the patterns, it starts with 3 stitches and it ends with 16 stitches. And if we look right down here, the first row that you work is going to be a right side row and row number 1, and you're always going to read that row from the right to the left. Remember that every square represents a stitch, and whatever is happening in that square is what you should do. So that first stitch has a circle in it, which if I come down to my key right here is a yarn over. So I'm going to yarn over that first stitch. And that next stitch is a blank box. And if I look down at my key, that is a knit stitch. And I'm going to knit the next 2. And then I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to knit 1. So in that first row, we started with 3 stitches and we're ending with 5 stitches. And now on row 2, the first thing you're going to do is make a yarn over, and then you are going to knit 5. What is different about Gneiss is this is garter stitch lace. So you are knitting stitches on the right side and wrong side of your work, which is really lovely and a fun way to do lace. If this is new for you, I think you're really going to enjoy it. So row 3, if we look at row 3, I do a yarn over, a knit 1, a yarn over. That's a new symbol, which is a CDD or a center double decrease, and then a yarn over, and then a knit 2. And now row 4, I'm going to read from the left to the right, and I'm going to do a yarn over, and then I'm going to knit to the end. One thing that I like to do with charts is either use a chart reader or I use a Post-it note, and I put the Post-it note above where I'm working and I just move that Post-it note up as I'm working to block off the rest of the chart so I can only see what is below the Post-it note, which is what's on my needles. And then you'll continue on reading right side rows from right to left and wrong side rows from left to right. In the beginning, until you get to row 19 and you place your marker, you might find that it helps you to place a removable stitch marker or something so you know you are on the right side of your work. So let's just work a few of those rows together. I kind of want to get up to placing the bead with you. So we're going to work them together on my needles. And I am not using the yarn that came in the kit right now because we find on the camera that it was a little too fuzzy and too gray and it was getting lost. So I'm actually using some really beautiful yarn that I am making a Gneiss for my mom. It's really a similar color to her eyes, and I think it's going to be a great 80th birthday present for her. All right, so the first thing we're doing is casting on 3 stitches, and I'm going to go ahead and give myself a little twist by starting just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and make 1 stitch with a long tail cast on using the front loop from my thumb, and then the second stitch with the back loop from my thumb, so that I end up with 3 stitches on my needles. If you need to watch that again, you can just back up and slow it down and watch it a few times while you do that on your needles. And now I'm going to jump right into the chart. And so the first thing I'm going to do is a yarn over, and making a yarn over at the beginning of a row might be new to you. I've got my working yarn right here. I'm just going to make a yarn over the right hand needle. And now I am going to knit 2 stitches. And then I'm going to make another yarn over. And then I'm going to knit the last stitch. And then you can kind of just tighten that down if you need to. And now I'm going to turn my work, and I am on row 2 right here. And I'm going to make a yarn over, and then I'm going to knit 5. That shouldn't be too hard. And now I'm going to turn my work again, and I'm on row 3 so I can show you that center double decrease. I'm going to make a yarn over at the start of the work. I'm going to knit 1. I'm going to make another yarn over, and now the center double decrease. I'm going to go to the second stitch on the left hand needle, slip that together with the first stitch onto the right hand needle, knit 1, then take both of those slip stitches and bring them back over. And now I'm going to make a yarn over, and I am going to knit 2. And now row 4, which you probably don't need to watch me do, is a yarn over and knit to the end. And then row 5 has a slip, slip, knit, and a knit 2 together. So we'll do those together. I've got a yarn over, and then I've got a slip, slip, knit. And so I'm gonna slip 1 stitch knitwise. I'm gonna slip the second stitch knitwise. I'm gonna bring the needle into the front of those 2 stitches and work them together. And now I'm going to make a yarn over, and I'm going to knit 3. And now I'm going to make another yarn over. I am going to knit 2 together, and I am going to knit 1. And now row 6, we're going to place a bead together. So if this is new for you, placing a bead, I'll be doing this right now with a crochet hook. But if you don't have a small crochet hook at home, like a 1 millimeter or 0.8 millimeter, and you're using the super floss that came in your kit, I do have a separate video that teaches you how to use that super floss. So now we're on row 6. I'm going to make a yarn over. I am going to knit 4. And now I'm going to bring my yarn to the front of my work, and that's pretty important. And now I'm going to go grab my crochet hook, and I'm going to grab a bead and put it onto the crochet hook. And then I'm going to slip that next stitch on the left hand needle off my needle, and I'm going to hold it really tight. So you can see I'm kind of pinching underneath and pulling up. And then I'm just going to slide that bead down onto the stitch. And then I'm just putting that on the left hand needle for a second, but I'm going to take that stitch and put it onto the right hand needle. And then I'm going to bring my yarn to the back of my work again. So you can see that that yarn is kind of coming over the bead. And what that does is pop the bead to the front of your work. So some of you might have noticed that we're placing a bead on the wrong side of the work, but we want that bead to show more on the right side of the work. And now you're going to go ahead on row 6 and knit to the end. So that's everything that I have to show you for now. And there's a few other things to show you that I'm going to just grab the chart, and then we're going to do some knitting for row 19 for placing the beads. The biggest thing to show you next is when you get to row 10, you're going to see that you have a decrease on a wrong side row. Do you see that? And so if you look at that decrease, you might originally think that you're working a slip, slip, knit on the wrong side row, because that's the same symbol as a slip, slip, knit on the right side row. But if we go down to the key, that symbol on a wrong side row is a knit 2 together. So once you get to row 10, every single wrong side row starts with a yarn over, knit 1, knit 2 together. So that's pretty important to remember. Once you get to row 10, every single wrong side row until you get to the very end of the scarf is a yarn over, knit 1, knit 2 together. So you'll get right in the groove with that. So now let's talk about markers. Okay, I'm still on the nice start of my nice scarf, and I am on row 19, and you will see in the pattern that on row 19 I suggest adding markers after the first 2 stitches, placing marker A, and then after the next 3 stitches, placing marker B. Once you have these markers placed, Every time you come to them, you will slip a marker and then work let me look at it to make sure I get it correctly. Every time you come to a marker, you will work a slip, slip, knit, a yarn over, and a knit one, and then slip the next marker. And that will be true for the entire scarf until you get to the opposite tip of Gneiss. So let's get those placed on marker 19 and you will see what I mean. I'm sorry, marker 19, row 19. So I'm going to work the first two stitches. The first two stitches is a yarn over and then a knit one. And then you are going to place marker A. I like to use my little nice rock right here for marker A. And then let me just get my yarn comfortable. I am going to work a slip, slip, knit. In garter stitch lace, you will notice that I've been working my slip, slip, knit as a slip one knitwise, slip the second one knitwise, and then working the two together. I do that pretty consistently in garter stitch lace. Then I'm going to make a yarn over, and then I am going to knit one, and then I am going to place my second marker. So now whenever I come to those markers, I am going to come to the marker, I'm going to work a slip, slip, knit, I'm going to work a yarn over, and then I'm going to work a knit one, and then I'm going to slip the second marker. What's cool is marker A will tell you you're on the right side of your work, and if you come to marker B first, that will tell you you're on the wrong side of your work. So those end up becoming really helpful. Some of you might decide that you want to kind of mark up your pattern by writing a line going up right here for marker B and a line right there for marker A. And you can kind of write that onto your pattern so that you know exactly what's happening when you come to those markers. So that is a good little trick about placing markers in row 19. Okay. So now let's look at the chart for a second. On my needles, I have rows 1 through 26 worked once, and then one of the nice increase sections worked. And what I want to look at here is this red box. Basically what's happening is every time you work the 12 rows of the nice increase, you are increasing 3 stitches. And those increased stitches will always be knit. Your marker A is right here on this chart and your marker B is right here. So what's going to happen is you're going to work the beginning of the nice increase and then you'll just be knitting until you get to marker A. So that part becomes very easy to work. And let me show you what that looks like on my needles. So I am on row 1 right here. I am working my second increase section and I'm going to work a yarn over. And now I am just going to knit up to the marker. And I'm going to have to give myself a little bit more yarn. And now I'm going to slip marker A. And remember I said every time I come to the marker, he's getting all caught up, crazy little nice rock, I am going to slip, slip, knit. And then I'm going to yarn over, and then I'm going to knit one. And what's happening with that slip, slip, knit, yarn over, knit one is you're creating this really cool mesh stripe. I've also heard this called a faggoting stitch. It's also known as a mesh stripe. You might have heard it called a few different things in different places. It's pretty iconic in Shetland lace to have a border like this separate different sections, like different patterning sections of a scarf. So I used it in this to really separate that lace edge from the garter stitch triangle in the main body of your nice scarf. The other thing I think it's very important to say is that this little swatch right here that I have under the camera has been blocked hard. So your knitting is not going going to look like this when you have it on your needles. It's going to look a little bit more like this, but even this swatch has been blocked just a little bit, not a lot. So don't be surprised if it's all like kind of crinkled up. You are going to need to block it, and I'm going to talk to you about that next. Okay, so after you've worked the number of increased sections for your nice scarf for the size that you're making, then you're gonna work the coordinating number of decreased sections, and then you will work that final nice, what did I call it? Oh, I called it a nice end. That last chart or written instruction, I cracked myself up. So after you work that and you're all done, you're gonna bind off those final stitches, and then you're gonna have this kind of crumpled mess that does not look like the beautiful scarf that I am wearing. What you're going to want to do is take that and take some warm water, not hot water and not cold water, fill up your sink with that, put in some wool wash, something lovely. I love to use soak. That's been my favorite lately of the wool washes. And then I will soak your scarf for like a good 5, 10, 15 minutes, as much as you want. And then take your scarf out of the water, wring it out in a towel to get a lot of the moisture out of it. And then you are going to want to stretch it out with pins, either on a blocking board. You can use a spare mattress, something that you can pin into a little bit, and let it dry all the way. You are going to be shocked by how much larger your scarf is before blocking and after blocking. And you could really tell that from the beginning when I gave you the difference in stitches per inch, unblocked and blocked, right? So your scarf is going to grow a lot. It is going to be gorgeous. Once it is done, you'll have a whopping 2 ends to weave in on each end, and then trim those, and you get to wear your very, very, very nice scarf. I always keep an eye on comments on these videos. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. I'll make sure to link to any other videos I talked about, like that placing a bead video. Of course, I hope when you finish your nice scarf, you'll want to knit another one of my designs. I make many videos like this to help you with your knitting. I would also love to remind you that I have a great Ravelry group, and we always have knit along threads in there. So that is another great place to go to knit with other people and ask questions and help people with their questions. I love the community that we create with our knitting together. So thank you very much. Happy knitting. I mean, nice knitting. So funny. So funny.